If you are in your 30s and you feel like you should be further along by now, but every time you try to change something, you freeze, you're not crazy, and you're definitely not lazy. There is something psychological going on that explains why starting over in your 30s feels impossible at this age. And once you understand, you can finally break free and start living your best life. So today, I am breaking down the psychological patterns that keep you stuck in your 30s and the evidence-based tools to rewire that. When I hit 35, I blew up my whole life. I left London and I moved to New York City on my own. I went back to school, started studying psychology, and I started IVF treatment all at the same time while adjusting to a new country and getting married as well. So it looked brave on paper, but internally I was terrified. Every part of me was screaming, you've already invested so much. What if it's too late? You're in your 30s. What if you fail publicly? What will people say? Right? What I was battling wasn't just fear, it was biology and it was psychology. My brain is wired to keep me in the familiar, even when the familiar isn't necessarily working out anymore. So if you're stuck, that may be the same situation for you. So let's start with what's actually happening in your brain. Your brain's primary job isn't to make you happy, it's to keep you safe. And it defines safe as predictable, right? So when you try to make a big life change, whether it's moving cities, leaving a job, starting over after a breakup, your brain literally interprets that as danger. Here's what's happening biologically. Your amygdala, your brain's emotional alarm system, fires up, flooding your body with stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline. You go into fight or flight mode. It's the same system that activates when you touch something hot or you hear a sudden loud bang, right? The prefrontal cortex, the part that's responsible for rational decision making, temporarily shuts down. That's why even small decisions like choosing a new gym, an outfit to wear can suddenly feel overwhelming. Your brain craves certainty, so when it doesn't get it, it generates anxiety. That's why you start overthinking, you start procrastinating, or doubting your choices, doubting who you are. That's the biological piece. But what really keeps you stuck in place is the psychological patterns you've built over decades. Let's break those down. Number one, the comfort zone loop. Your comfort zone isn't actually comfortable. It's just familiar, right? So research shows that people assign different values to staying in their comfort zone. And by your 30s, that value gets stronger because you've built an entire structure, you've built an entire life around predictability. The brain loves patterns, even painful ones, right? Because they require less energy to maintain. So it's easier to stay in the same spot rather than change. If you've spent years in a job, in a relationship, or a city that doesn't necessarily fulfill you anymore, your brain sees that as safe territory. Change then equals a threat. Familiar discomfort is security. Even if you're uncomfortable, your brain literally prefers familiar discomfort over uncertain improvements. Number two is the sunk cost fallacy, and we all know this one. This is one of the most powerful mental traps. Psychologists identified this as a cognitive bias. You base decisions on past investments instead of future potential. It's the idea that because you invested years, money, effort into something, you need to keep going. Even when it's no longer right for you, even when it doesn't serve you anymore. You tell yourself, well, I can't just throw away 10 years of experience. I can't just walk away from this relationship. What if it's all for nothing? But here's the truth. Holding on to something just because you invested in it is how people waste another 10 years. Psychologically, your brain hates loss, even the illusion of it. So it convinces you to double down instead of pivot. When you most need to change, your brain convinces you to stay. And the longer you've invested, the harder it is to walk away. Number three is the identity freeze. By your 30s, you've built an identity around who you think you are. your job title, your relationship status, your many achievements, that by the time you're 35, your brain has formed what psychologists call habit loops. These are automatic patterns that define who you think you are, right? Based on everything that you have achieved, based on what you have built up over the many decades that you've been alive. So changing direction feels like dismantling the self. It feels like losing yourself. So even if you consciously want transformation, subconsciously your brain resists because it interprets reinvention as an identity threat. When I started over, I was so worried about what people would say. Like, you're going back to study psychology now. What about your music career? What about your relationship? What about everything that you built in the UK? I didn't realize how much my worth was tied to what I used to be known for until I wasn't that person anymore, until I was forced to change. I had to change. My brain wanted to cling to the old identity because it gave me social validation. That's identity freeze in real time. It's the external validation that you get that prevents you from making that change. But here's the truth: your brain's resistance isn't permanent, it's malleable. Through the process of neuroplasticity, which is your brain's ability to form new neural pathways through repetition and emotion, you can literally rewire the patterns that keep you stuck. But you have to do it strategically. Here's how. Number one, shrink the change. Big goals overwhelm the brain's threat system. So instead of saying, I'm changing my whole life, focus on, I'm changing one decision today. I'm making one small change that's going to move me forward. Don't say, I am reinventing my whole career. Instead, say, I'm updating my LinkedIn summary to reflect who I am now, to reflect the job and career that I want to build. And with each small win, you release dopamine, which is the reward chemical. And that tells your brain change can feel good. Change doesn't have to be a threat. Number two is to name the fear. The moment you label your fear, you move it from the amygdala, the emotion center, to the prefrontal cortex, the logic center. So instead of vague panic, try naming the fear that you're feeling, right? Be honest. I'm afraid of being judged for starting over. Now you can address that specific fear, not the entire reinvention process. This is called affect labeling, and it's a core psychological tool for emotional regulation. I have had to use this tool on my own journey, and I still use it, and it's helped me move through my fears and find solutions rather than being stuck. Number three is to create safety cues. Your nervous system needs evidence that you're safe while you're changing. As we said, when change occurs or when you're wanting to change, your nervous system goes into panic mode. This can be physical, breath work, grounding, movement. It could be environmental. So a supportive friend, a group, doing your affirmations in the morning, even music that makes you feel good. These cues signal that it's safe to move forward, like you've got a safety net there. Over time, your brain learns that growth doesn't equal danger, it equals expansion, it equals growth. Number four is to reframe the narrative. I have had to do this over and over again. Ask yourself, am I losing something or am I evolving? Changing your perspective is a game changer because in most cases, you're not letting go of a past version of you. You're integrating her into who you're becoming. This simple cognitive shift rewires the relationship you have with change, the relationship you have with your past self, and then also your future self. You stop mourning the old you and you start celebrating the new you, the one that you are becoming, the one who is going to live this incredible, incredible life that you're building. So all in all, here's the truth. Your brain will always resist change, no matter how old or wise you get, no matter how much you think you know. That resistance isn't failure, it's a sign that you're entering unfamiliar territory. Every time you make a choice that aligns with who you're becoming, you weaken the old neural pathways that keep you stuck, right? And you strengthen the new ones that move you forward. What I know and what I want you to know is that reinvention isn't a single leap. It's thousands of micro decisions to keep showing up, even when you're uncomfortable, even when you don't want to, when you're down. Just small steps and small actions are what's going to move you forward, not the big, massive leaps. And more importantly, I want you to remember, as I've had to remind myself, the patterns that keep you stuck. They were adaptive at some point. They served their purpose. They served you, right? You survived using those patterns. But just because something worked in your 20s, it doesn't mean it's going to work in your 30s. And recognizing that isn't failure. So if you're in your 30s and you're starting over, you're not late. It's never ever too late. I've learned that. You're just rewiring your brain. You're literally teaching your brain a new definition of safety. And each time you go through a reinvention phase, you have to teach your brain again. Your brain has to learn again at every stage. So if you're going through your reinvention journey, be kind, be patient, give yourself grace. You are doing something most people don't. Certainly in your 30s, it's a big change that you're making. And that brings me to the end of this video. I hope it helped you make sense of what you're feeling as you're going through your reinvention journey. And I want to stress that it is never too late. You are not too late to change your life, to do whatever that you want to do. Even if you're in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, it is never too late. You are not behind. You are just becoming. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.